show up, and then I think I'll actually start off nice and slowly, because I know we have like a quite nice playful program. You are of course allowed to turn off your camera if you want, and turn it on if you like. It's very nice to see each other, to not like be speaking into the existential void. So that's also really nice. And I know we will probably have use our cameras later on. Yeah. Also, it would be very nice, I can see some of you already doing that, to kind of just introduce yourself in the chat. So where you're from in the world or in your institution, and perhaps also what your interest is in this subject, why you're here, just to get a sense of the room. My name is Rikke Toft Nørgaard. I'm an associate professor at the Danish School of Education at Aarhus University in Denmark, and kind of responsible for this craziness that is the Playful University project that's been running for a couple of years now. And I'll shortly kind of introduce the whole setting while you write stuff in the chat. And I haven't actually prepared any slides, so I will take you through some web pages, and I'll share the links to those web pages in the chat afterwards, so you can kind of access them. Let's see how this goes. First of all, for those of you that do not know that, the Playful University project, or PUP, which is also the Playful University platform, is part of the Center for Higher Education Futures at Aarhus University, where I'm in the steering group, and they have a host of other events on all kinds of things related to higher education reform in Nepal, international conference on blended workshop, and so on and so on. So you can go there and see all the events. One nice thing that came out of the pandemic is that all these events now are mostly online. So they are always online, they're always free and open to everyone. So if you find something you fancy, you just write yourself up to those webinars, and you can also read more about SCHEF and who we are and what projects we have and so on. And there you will also find the links to the other webinars in this webinar series. So SCHEF is the research center that kind of hosts PUP. But PUP, or the Playful University platform, also has its own webpage where we kind of collected all the materials for these first 2 years it's been running. It started off with a conference here in 2019, and there you can see all the conference presentation and slides. Then last fall, in 2020, we had the first Playful or PUP thematic webinar series on playful higher education. And this is then the second installment of the thematic webinar series. And this second installment is on designing for playful higher education. And here you can find the playful webinars and a lot of playful voices that we have, and we are building a library on. And if any of you out there would like to add your voice to the choir of Playful Academics, you can just write to me or Kimi or Josefine and let us know, and then we would love to add your voice to that choir. Under news on the platform, and I'll share the link, you can also find the entire webinar series here. So today is Monday, October 11, and we are very much looking forward to, in a couple of minutes, to have this first opening of the thematic webinar series on what is it like to be a playful academic and how can we forge ways to get there, with Annika Lübert, Pedro González Fernandez, and with a Z, which is in his Zoom name, but a misspelling here, and Katrin Heimann. All the wonderful presenters in the webinar series are coming out of 2 special issues we did for the Journal of Play in Adulthood, where we have the first issue where Pedro, Annika, and Katrin's article is part of on the Playful Academic, and the second special issue that came out less than a week ago, I think, on designs for playful learning. So we kind of selected some of the authors of those 2 special issues and asked them to share their spectacular academic thinking and being with us here. So here you can also go and find their article, which is here. from what is to what if. So let's try a treasure box for the Playful Academic. And I also share the link with that. And as mentioned, it's part of Chef. So of course you already went here when you registered, and here you can see who they are. Oh, that's the wrong one, sorry. It's here. See who they are, and there's an abstract, and again there's a link to the article and to the mindful researchers here. Yes, I think my time is almost already up here. As mentioned, I'll share these links with you in the chat when I give the floor to the three magnificent speakers here. And in the end, I'll also kind of make a short bridge to the next webinar, which is on the November 1st, because we try to really also build a bridge between them. One thing I would say, like the whole webinar series will end with hopefully, if everything goes playfully right or wrong in the right way, we'll end with a book reception, online book reception, where we will kind of collect some of the materials of these 2 years into a digital book that we will share with everyone who comes. And of course, it will also be shared with the world on the platform. So I think that's all I want to say, because I know we have a lot of playful stuff ahead of us, and I want you to give Katrin and Annika and Fernandez the most possible time to do stuff with us here today. So I'll just leave the floor to you, so you can kind of also introduce you and yourself in any way you like. Yeah, and the floor is actually yours, and welcome to this opening of this fall's Poop thematic webinar series.
Thank you very much, Rike. Yes, I'm Annika, and Pedro, Katrin, and we will guide you through the next hour and a bit. And I won't say too much actually at this moment, but we will take a moment to introduce ourselves later. So right now, I would actually invite everybody to just take a moment and settle yourself where you are. Just maybe relax your shoulders, or notice where you are, notice the room around you and how you feel. So even if it's also for me, I use this time to notice how I feel and be present with the group around me. Yeah, Pedro, whenever you are ready, you can take the floor and guide us further.
Okay. Yeah, so we will start with a short improvisational game, and we will use Zoom's interface, our computer's webcam, and our thumbs as instruments. We have 3 materials to play with. The first one is called black, and is the equivalent to silence. And we will play this material by placing our both thumbs on top of the webcam, one after the other. So we just place both hands like this, and then on top. So no light hits the camera, and the resulting image is totally black. So let's try it all together. Just place your thumb on top of the camera and have this black image, as black as possible. Okay, great. Then material number 2 that we have. We can get the effect by slowly moving our thumb on top of the camera. So we will let some light through like our skin, and it will take this reddish, sometimes greenish color. You can move it and feel the camera with these colors. Okay, and then the final material, the third material, is called stroboscope, and we can play it by fastly moving our thumb off and on the camera like this. So we will get this kind of strobe effect in the camera. So the exercise will go as follows. You can now select the gallery view in your Zoom, so you can see everyone in the room, not just the speaker. Gallery, okay. And the exercise is divided in 2 parts. So we first start all together from black with the 2 thumbs. Then, as soon as one participant from any of us changes the material being played, everyone has to follow with the same material as fast as possible. So if we are in black and someone starts with the strobe, everyone goes with the strobe as fast as possible. In a way that from the outside will look like we are acting and taking decisions all in sync, all together. After a couple of minutes of doing this, like just following each other, there is no clear leader or follower, it just goes the way it goes. the exercise opens up and then the rules do not apply anymore. So then you can basically do whatever you want. And I think it's good also if we try to find in the end like a final moment for the exercise together, like finding as a piece of music that we finish. And we have around 3 minutes. So you can get as creative as you want. You think about the setup and what possibilities does it offer, and also what objects do you have at hand. So once the rules are broken, you can just do whatever you want, okay? So let's start from black, both thumbs on top of each other, into the camera. Everyone is black, now is silence. And as soon as one wants to start, we go all together. Let's go for it.
Thank you very much, Pedro. And everybody, of course. Good to see all these exciting objects in space. Yes, and as you may have read in the announcement for this event, Pedro, Katrin and I basically came together in an effort to search our backgrounds for tools to bring playfulness into academia. Yeah. So to check in after this exercise, I'm in Hamburg in Germany. And it was also for me the first time to do this task in such a big group. So it was exciting to see the flow of activity across the screen. Katrin?
Yeah, I'm Katrin and I'm located in Vejle in Denmark. Yeah, Pedro?
Yeah, I am Pedro and I'm here in Hamburg as well. And it was very interesting to do it in such a big group. It really changes a lot depending on the setup, so it's always merging and giving new input, this kind of open exercises. It was fun to see.
Welcome everybody again. And you know that we are here today to offer possibilities or ways forwards towards being playful academics. But why is it that we care about this topic? So how come we think it's a useful idea to bring playfulness into academic contexts in our lives as researchers? And essentially, our reason is that we want to do good work. And we think that in order to do good work, it takes spaces that welcome us as persons. With our unique perspective, tools, and experience. And it also takes collaboration. So it takes diverse individuals who feel invited to participate in the daily buzz of their lab group, and also in the longer lasting vision making that guides their institute or their discipline in the future. And we think that playful work environments could do that. They could help us meet others on equal grounds, and they keep us moving into ways of working and collaborating that feed and serve us, our research purpose, and also the wider social and environmental context that we are part of. So how does play do that? Play asks us to mix what we already know and value with unpredictable courses of events that can emerge in an interaction. It connects us to our safe home base, but also makes us curious to explore what's beyond. As such, it can level the ground between very different people, different backgrounds, and also different forms of knowing. Play also reminds us that our work should be fun and rewarding. So yes, at times frustrating, charged with conflict maybe, or confusing, but always nourishing and inspiring for the many players who are involved. So work should be luxurious, whatever that means for each of us, and play knows that. We also think that everybody brings relevant experience or know-how to play. We may just need to look again with an eye for resources and tools that inspire us, and the humble courage to simply try it out. Or at least that is what Pedro, Katrin, and I did when we wrote this article. So we met and talked, explored, and challenged each other to propose ways in which we could fiddle with our theories or practice what we preach. To fiddle with them, explore them in a way that welcomes and invites others to join the process, be it other faces or other forms of knowing. And in this vein, what did I bring to the table, if you wish? So my background is in embodied cognition. And embodied cognition says that thinking and behavior are the making of a body enmeshed in a world. So the quality of listening of the person in front of you matters. The tools and media you use matter. Our imagination and our disabilities are shaped by what is and has been available for us. The food we eat, the time we take to relax and stroll, or also the roles we get to play in our social and physical homes. So we created scores for the Playful Academic to cherish and play with this insight. We introduced embodied awareness practices like Feldenkreis or contact improvisation, and we devote time in our protocols to simply attend to the body. We also encourage a mode of reflection and talking to each other that gets us in touch with our experience and that of others. So the idea is that if we regularly engage in such playful explorations, that will allow these theories to actually inspire us. As we meet, as we develop hypotheses, analyze data, write articles, or prepare to host an event, we might become curious to experiment and discover new perspectives and tools, slowly transforming our habits to be more interesting and better equipped tools for our research practice. And as you may hear in these words, we have come to see playfulness itself as a method. So it served us as a source of inspiration, a state of mind that can teach us about the ingredients needed to meet and engage with others with an open mind, and as the very means to achieve it. So playfulness may be a necessary ingredient if we want to do sustainable and fruitful work. And Katrin, maybe you want to take it from here and tell us a bit about the research you did on playfulness?
Sure, yes. So in the last 5 years, I've been part of a research project founded by the LEGO Foundation called PlayTrack, that was funded to do basic research into play and playfulness and how such affect learning in specifically. And as we know, academia is all about learning. So within this project, I focused on playfulness in adults. And in one of my studies, I asked adults to engage in a Lego building activity. So basically, I asked them to use a fixed number of bricks to build a duck-like creature. One of them you see on this picture here in front of you. And I asked them to do that either so it feels playful to them, or so that it really did not feel playful to them, without further explaining what this concept meant to me. And then I interviewed them about the experiential process they went through to fulfill this task. That is, I asked them, what happened to you from the moment you heard about this task until you stopped with building and told me, I'm ready. And I learned a number of things about playfulness from this experiment, and I want to share at least 3 of them with you now. Could you change your slide, Annika? Perfect. So first, the interviews allowed me and my group actually to describe what I call the loop of playful engagement. So participants that described successfully entering a playful mood, they reported 4 important steps on this journey. So firstly, they intentionally freed themselves from outside restrictions. So they decided that to be playful, they needed to decide themselves what to do, like how to play. Like from now on, I will decide, right? And for some participants, that even meant not to build ducks, right? So they went so far in that aspect, which surprised me at the beginning. Secondly, when they managed to get in this free interaction with the bricks, they actually described entering what I later called like an absorbed interaction with the material. That meant they described actually almost aesthetic experiences of touching the bricks, having memories of the bricks coming up, of touching them as a child, and interacting with them, tinkering with them, in the sense that they often lost the sense of agency, like the bricks were taking over or something like that, right? And this again led them to very surprising figures that they then created, they themselves, and which created this like hope. And then what they did was, despite the fact that they were surprised, and despite the fact that they had described that they lost agency in this process, they said, oh, I did that. And they gained a certain way of confidence for them that motivated them to engage again and build another figure and do this in this loop. And this loop is basically what we know as intrinsic motivation, which is why what we used as our basis to argue why playfulness might be able to support learning. Could you change the slide again? Oh yeah. I also learned that participants enjoyed the specific style of the interview that I used. The interview technique that I use is called microphenomenology. And it's an interview technique that asks deeply into the lived experience of somebody. So not about reflecting what you just did in this, like putting in front of you, did you like it or something like that, but basically just going through your memory of it and telling all the details that you recall of what you did and how that affected you, how you resonated with the process that happened. And so what the interviewer does in this process, it is you become actually a radical listener of somebody telling you and asking to more and more details, rather than an interpreter or a partner of dialogue. And being listened to in this way, allowing the participants to listen to themselves so closely, is actually experienced as freeing for a lot of people. Engaging, surprising, and enjoyable on top of that. And it's freeing not only in an autonomy sense, but often it happens that they find new ways of dealing with themselves, right? They find that they actually had an idea of building in the middle of that they almost forgot about, and they use it to start anew. So they use it also to develop and maybe to leave certain habits. And so what I would say is that this interview actually prompts you to interact playfully with your own experience. which is why we used part of this interview technique in our scores for the Playful Academic. Lastly, I learned something about the conditions of playfulness in these interviews. So if you want to help people and make it easy for them to become playful, you can do that by offering an environment that in particular allows for freedom and deep and surprising interaction. And at the same time, the feeling of confidence, right, that you develop from that all at once. And I could say a lot of things about how which environments do that and which environments don't. But what we found in our conversation and when we introduced the tools and resources we each found in our backgrounds in this project, we discovered that scores from an artistic practice might offer just that, because they offer instructions that ask you to do something, that send you on a apparently very clear journey, and thus make you feel very confident to start with. But at the same time, as you might actually experience in our first Zoom score, what they ask you is formulated in a way that allows for a bit of interpretation and variety and room for experiment at the end. So that does contain the possibility to stroll off path, be surprised of what happens. And there's so many possible scores in that. So I really think we're just at the beginning to learn to work with them. And with this, I give over the hand to Pedro, who introduces this element a bit better.
Yeah, thanks, Katrin. So, well, I will give a bit of just a background about how the scores went for me, or I think how did enter the process of what we are doing. I was originally trained as a classical violin player, and the German score has been my practice all along the way since I started. And in music, I used to know scores as an interface or an organ of communication between a creative voice, the composer that has a plan, and the performer or team of performers that is to successfully execute it. So the composition side there represents the universal, the abstract rules and ethics, and the interpreter of the performer represent the material, the praxis, the specific, and the experience. However, in my instrumental practice, research and teaching in the last years, I have transitioned in my use of scores from this guideline conceived to train arms and fingers into producing desirable sounds to an open and iterative structure built to support a creative process. So now I see, and I have also used scores as an alive and self-transforming medium, a catalyst that provides a structure for individuals to explore and integrate the different experiences at eye level, and that morphs and evolves as we work with it. So in my practice as a composer, I use scores to bring art and science together in the form of research through art practices. First, it comes to experience, like the doing, and then inside of this practice, this work, we create our research, our questions, and answer our own questions through it. I believe in artistic research as a great tool to provide the arts with the resources and bring more diverse ways of knowing to universities. And also in important ways, I see scores as a tool to accomplish these goals, to dignify and create spaces for artistic practice within research institutes and technical universities, and to embrace difference and dialogue. So here in these slides, you can see two examples of scores I've made. In the first one, all the final musical techniques and sounds to be performed by the instrumentalists of the ensembles are really clearly defined. The expected result will not vary much independently of the people performing it. The second example, to the right, is a score that aims at creating a frame for development in a group setting in which the ensemble and myself collaborate towards a shared expression. So in this function, that we also have used scores in the Playful Academy, we have done a similar thing. So to bridge gaps between different ways of knowing and working and involving them in a shared and playful exploration. Inspired equally by embodied cognition and the playful loop that Annika and Katrin just outlined, we focus on our scores on sensitivity to the body, experience, and the environment, as well as the aspirations and questions that motivate us and the larger social and institutional dynamics that frame and sustain our work. We furthermore choose to begin our set of scores with practices for inner listening and awareness of the spaces we inhabit, after which we enter social dynamics and conceptual reflection. Our idea was to find an organic transition or build up and facilitate a shared exploration that is grounded in awareness of bodies and environments. So here you have a description of how the protocol, our protocol in the article works. So there are a set of 7 exercises that are, well, they develop as follows. So first, we have this drawing in circles that the idea is to ease into a sense of shared belonging and decision making with the group, like something similar to what we did in the webcam exercise in the beginning. And the idea is to get a first feeling for the group we're collaborating with. Then the second one is called writing from two to ceiling. And the idea is to activate awareness of the body and the environment while performing a familiar action that we usually perform in our research. So then we will do it later, is this scribbling exercises in our protocol. And it's about, inner listening and body awareness. Then the third one is called Each of Us and All Together. And the idea is to reflect on purpose and offer a moment of attention to each participant's story. So who are we? What are we doing? And to join create the context and purpose of a meeting. So it's about understanding our motivations and why are we here. Then the fourth one is triangulating a space. And the idea is to explore group dynamics through painting, noticing recurrent patterns, accumulation or rhythm, and how the characteristics of the whole that we are doing shifts every time a gesture or step is added. So it's a bit similar to the first exercise, to the drawing in circles one. Then we have this reading between the concepts that is thought to fully commit to a creative endeavor by paying detailed attention on how we subjectively experience it. So it's about active listening. Then we have the sixth one, it's called creative nonfiction. And the idea is to facilitate play and expression, opening up to alternative thinking habits and more intuitive modes of expression, kind of like a creative writing exercise. And then in the end of our protocol, we have diamonds in the row. And the idea is to revisit and share thoughts and impressions from the groupal experience we went through, kind of like a sharing circle structure. So this is just a presentation of our protocol and different activities and how they are organized in time. So maybe, Annika, you can continue with.
Yes, basically I will finish the slide share here. Yeah, and maybe this was also a lot of information delivered a bit quickly all at once to you, but you know that we also, of course, you can access the article if you're interested to look in more detail into any of these exercises. And yeah, some of them or several of them we will also explore with you now. And so the first exercise that I would now invite you to join into is writing from toe to ceiling. And if you have any writing material next to you, so a notebook or paper, or you could even use a tablet, or but I would recommend maybe more paper and pen style of writing material. But if you could bring that now, and you don't need to be necessarily present in front of the camera. You can also look around into your room for a space where you would like to do this writing exercise. So it's really just about scribbling in your notebook and noticing how you feel, or also where you are in the environment. So it's totally fine to go somewhere else, as long as you can hear me. Yes, and so the exercise begins by just scribbling something onto your paper. So you don't have not to worry about what you're scribbling, just to perform the scribbling action. And as you do that, maybe you notice the scribbling movement in your body. So maybe you feel it in your fingers, the pen you're holding, or even in your belly, because you're moving your body a bit and you position yourself on the chair you're seated to sort of hold the pen properly. And try to rest with one of these spaces. So if you can feel a bit of movement in your wrist or in your shoulder, maybe. Try to stay aware of that place in your body as you're scribbling. And maybe you could even try to draw something from that place, so that you initiate the drawing movement, not by just thinking that you want to write an A or a B, but by letting the shoulder move the pen. And maybe this slows down the movement that you do to draw, or it speeds it up? And if you're curious, you can also switch to another pen or sit a bit differently. And focus in the same spot of your body and just try it again. And maybe there's also a work-related project that involves writing for you. And see if you can continue this scribbling activity and think about this project, and maybe it will also change the way that you're. And of course, you can also write something if you feel like it. Just try to stay aware of these other elements while you're writing. So your body and also this project, maybe this work project. Okay, so we will take a moment to come back and split the group into diets now. So you have a chance to experiment a short improvisation game with just the two of you, and also share a bit about the experience you had so far. So be it what you heard in our presentations, the camera game, or this writing exploration now. And we will provide you with sort of little notices when to shift to another activity in your breakout room through the broadcast. So you will see words coming up in the top of the screen. And we will also post a detailed instruction for the listening into the chat now, but you don't need to read it now. There will be a moment when we point you to this instruction when you're already in the breakout room.
The first exercise is going to be a shadowing exercise, and then there will be this reflection on what Annika just described before. So it will be happening in pairs and, or with three people, in the case of the two of you who are in the three-person room. Think about a computer screen that you're seeing as a canvas, and your right hand, which is going to be holding your pen that you used for the scribbling before, as a brush, let's say. So the exercise is divided in three parts that more or less last 1 minute each. So before starting, when you're in the breakout room, you need to distribute your roles as leader or follower. So for the first round. So let's say that the first round that you do, the younger person could be the leader, and the older person could be the follower. So you can start by moving your pen in the air like this, all along the screen, and the follower mirrors the movement of the leader, trying to be as close as possible. So after 1 minute that this is happening, that is a leader or follower, then you will switch. You will receive this also message, switch the roles. And then you repeat the exercise for 1 minute in the new role distribution. So you swap. And then there is a final round where there is no leader or follower, but both participants follow each other and negotiate role changes together. So once you are there, you have this first, you're leading, then following, or the opposite, and then this co-improvisation where try again that the movement is kind of like linked to the other person. You are shadowing all the time. So that's the first exercise. So we'll distribute you into breakout rooms, and you have around 12 minutes. We will inform you with some text about the changes.
Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. We were actually really glad that you took your time to come back, because it was a good sign for us. You know, you're sitting here as your host and you have no ideas what's going on in these breakout rooms, and I'm still not used to Zoom in that way. It's like, is it working? Is it not working? Anyways, so we wanted to just dedicate a few minutes to share in the big group what actually happened. So to invite you to share your thoughts on what you experienced so far and how that was for you. And maybe we, to break the ice, we shortly start. And I just did a bit in the sense of saying, like, we actually realized by doing this that the context that we did the exercises with so far was a very different context. That is, we did the exercises in groups that we work in to prepare a meeting, a writing process, something that we are just in there to allow us, you know, to arrive in the room together, to arrive in us together, to maybe share some thoughts that is part of the exercise and the protocol about the current process and the current project we are in. And this is, of course, a very different group, because we will leave this room after these exercises not working with each other necessarily. And this is a very different way of like saying like, oh, you know, we are preparing a ground for nothing. And does it actually work in that sense of, so that might be just a little background of us. But is there somebody else that would like to share of what you went through so far, what you discovered in the diets? Yes, Vicky.
Yeah, hello. I was together with Alison, and we actually talked about something that kind of like made me revisit my own kind of like performance and kind of like how you tell a story to people. And you have to somehow engage the listener to the kind of like settings that you are telling in, because when you know the field very well, you kind of like forget how, when, where, and just talk about the experience. So that was kind of like, so Alison had a lot of questions for me afterwards, kind of like, but when, where, what, how, what? And even though she understood the story, she kind of like had all these questions afterwards. So
I think it was a sign that Vicky was telling a really good story, though, that I was interested and I did have questions, because otherwise I could have just said nothing.
Somebody else? Yeah, Rikke.
Yeah, I was in the room with Malene, and we were talking about the difference between doing this over Zoom and if we'd been physically in the same room, and if we were experienced Zoom users compared to new Zoom users. So something like, how do you show active listening over Zoom? Because you have the camera. So if I look at the camera, it looks like I'm actually looking you in the eyes, but then I'm not actually looking you in the eyes because I have to go like this to look you in the eyes. So it's very hard to signal strong eye contact over Zoom. And then we talked about that perhaps we actually, that depends on what kind of listener you are. Like, how do you listen to a story in a strong way? Because when I listen strongly, I actually often look away to listen more carefully, because when people look me in the eye, I become very kind of meta, like, how do I look? Do I look like I'm listening? And then I'm not actually listening. So we actually had a lot of talk about how do you actually listen in a sincere way and not necessarily just look like you're listening.
Yeah, it's very interesting also when it comes to the interviews, when you do the interviews, is actually you make notes. So you actually don't have constant eye. You kind of look, but you are so in very detailed notes that it's actually a way of not doing that, right? By showing attention. Yes, Matt. Hi.
I'm just thinking about the mutual drawing. When we were following each other, I found that really difficult. But Tom very usefully said, right, I'm now drawing a beach. And at that point, I was able to conceptualize a bit more what was going on, and the interaction then became easier to follow. It was a load of fun, but it was quite hard to do.
Matt, one that I thought had the finger exercise sort of took us into that sort of embodied way, and that sort of connected this, that when Matt was telling me his story about a slight mishap he had on a longboard, not a skateboard, a longboard, I had a lot of history. I actually was feeling his pain, literally his pain. his recovery from pain, and just that connectedness with both our bodies, with that finger, of them moving into that particular story that involved Matt introducing me to his hobby, his passion, the textures in his life, his children, his partner. And we even moved on to talking about the price of art and a bit of Damien Hirst. But I'll stop there.
That sounds beautiful, though.
Yeah, that reminds me of something I was thinking also in the in-between time about establishing connection. So with a new group of such a big group, it's more difficult also for us to establish maybe, or to learn. For me, it's a learning experience that the most important step in the beginning of such an event will be to establish connection, and then we can take it from there and explore some activities. And so maybe also the small group setting is a very good way to begin that, so that we even start with a small group and then we come to the big group already telling of a connection. So, yes.
Anybody else that would like to share something? If not, then I actually think I would like to lead us into our next exercise, which is maybe an exercise that might help us a bit to even establish the connection now, though we are already approaching the last part of the talk. But then we also have some time afterwards, Annika and Pedro, for questions, right? That's kind of nice. Okay. So again, we would like to invite you to a score. The score is actually called Invite Me, and this score is not our invention. It's a score made by Dorte Pierre Jensen, who's a dancer and scientist at Aarhus University, also part of the Interacting Mind Center. And this is the score where you would like to use the Post-its and the pens that you have prepared, especially the Post-its. And the score was developed, to give you a bit more context this time. In times of the pandemic, there was an offline score, but it never got applied because the pandemic started. And so it's actually developed for being on Zoom together. And we have tried it out in different contexts, among others, because I'm living on a Højskole, which is a Danish boarding school system, where at a certain point people had to go into isolation. And we needed to offer a teaching format while they were, though on the same space, in isolation, in their own rooms. And so maybe that gives you a context about this exercise. So again, I will read you something, and I ask you to follow the score, okay? So I would like to invite you to look around in the space that you are in right now. Unfortunately, we are in a webinar, so we don't share this space, right? Turn around, look around if you want to, even stand up, experience the room that you are in, and a bit the way that you inhabit it. Realize how big it is, not necessarily in square meters, but how much you can move in it, how it feels like. Take some time to explore it as if you did not know it as much as you might do if you do. Consider the most used spaces of the space, the most traced paths, the often used surface, the objects, the view out of the window you always take. Then maybe go a bit further. Does the room have hidden edges you rarely visit? Places where papers can be stuffed away, where things get forgotten, places for broken equipment, superfluous lives. What about the view you do not often take? What else is to see in there and out there? You're welcome to touch places you know or don't know. Manipulate what is familiar and what is forgotten. It can be just on your desk if you're still sitting, or anywhere in your room. While you're exploring, try to take this perspective. Is there something, the things, the places, the furniture could want to tell you? Maybe the door whispers to be shut. Maybe a long forgotten pen screams to be used. Maybe a photo tells a story about a day long ago. Please take a moment to consider these voices and then write down 2 of those voices on 2 different post-its and stick them to the body of the voice, the door, the pen, anything that talks to you. It does not have to be long, just 1 sentence. Maybe your wall gets a sticker with "just lean into me." I don't know, something like that. I give you just 2 minutes to do this. Okay. Now I would like to invite all of you to share one of these sentences with us by reading out loud to us. Please don't tell us where the sentence is located now in your room. It's fine if we see that, but don't tell us in particular, right? Or who is saying it. Just read it out loud. While you read it, I will type them in the chat on the side here without the context, okay? And so for that to work, and then I will tell you what further happens. For that to work, I will just ask just say your name, and then you say out your sentence, okay? Pedro, Annika, did you also do it? Okay. Pedro, do you want to start, or are you away? He's there, I see the shadow, but... Okay, Annika, maybe you start. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yes, come race with me. We can be fast together.
Okay. Kimmy, did you do it? Would you like to share one sentence with?
Paint me.
Great. Laura, are you also having a sentence for us?
Why am I here?
Kim.
Atmospheres in in-betweens.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, atmospheres in in-betweens.
Atmospheres and in-betweens?
Yeah, in-betweens.
Okay. Yes. Rege.
You never saw this.
Marlene.
You smile subtly.
Anna.
Okay, mine is tell me a story from this 200-year-old house.
Matt, do you want to share one?
Oh, sorry. Yes, play me more.
Play me more. Vicky.
I should be used every day.
Alison.
Understand my history.
Søren.
You see right through me.
Tom. And you're not alone, you can both give sentences.
Yeah. A place for everything, but don't move anything.
My one is play with me.
Play with me?
Play with me.
Carrie.
As I was late, I'm going to take a guess at this.
Okay. Sorry.
So confusion becoming clarity.
Thank you. Caroline.
Put me up on the wall.
Irene.
Open me and reveal my secrets.
Talk to me and reveal my secrets.
Open me.
Open me. Thank you. Kristen.
Forgotten in the corner again.
Tony.
I was also a little late.
Okay, that's fine.
No, but I also think I feel the activity. Yeah. You look like something I did.
Cool. Matthias.
So many possibilities.
And Emilia, you put yours above. Mine for now, someone else's later. And Tatiana, do you also have one? I feel your connection is bad. Maybe you post it in the...
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll post.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so here goes the rest of the score. We're almost done. So I would invite you now to, let me see where I have that. Yeah, to look for for your own sentence in the chat on the right side. And then I would like to ask you to take the 3 sentences above your sentence. And if you're in the very top, you start from the lower end, right? Like the 3 sentences that were said before yours, right? And put them all on a post-it, right? On each one on a post-it. And when you have done that, I would like you to distribute these voices in your room where they could be hanged, right? On a place where they would fit your room. And I give you again 2 minutes for doing that. Okay, I see you all sitting back at the screen, so I guess that you've done it. Yeah, so if you feel like it, would you like to share where in your room one of the voices of the others is hanging? Who would like to share something? Yeah, Rika, everyone know what your glasses are telling you.
So this is saying, why am I here? And it's hanging on me.
I'm not sure. I'll try and show you. I've put it, there's a loft hatch in my office. Or it goes somewhere, I don't know where, but I put mine up, or the one that I got up there. Oh, it's falling down. And it said, tell me a story from this 200-year-old house. But the crazy thing is my house is 200 years old and we haven't been here very long. So it was really spooky.
So nice. Somebody else? Matthias.
It was quite easy to find a place for this one because it's, and it says, open me and reveal my secrets. So.
So nice.
Yeah. I got this really difficult one, confusion between clarity. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's this, I'm at my son's house, so I don't live here. And this is a really strange painting.
Yeah, so nice. Maybe a last one, if somebody wants to say, yeah. Maybe Laura and Matt are both allowed to say something. Laura, start, please.
I really like this one. It says, come race with me, we can be fast together. So I put it on my wheelie chair. but that could be quite fun.
And that.
I had You Never Saw This, so I put it inside a cupboard that I don't, the back side of the door.
So nice. Thank you. Yeah, so with this, we would like to open the floor for some questions to us about our whole endeavor before we close it off with Rekke. What do you think? What questions are there? Annika, do you want to moderate that, maybe?
Yeah, Vicky?
Yeah, I actually have two questions for you. And the first question is, you talked about intrinsic motivation. And I was thinking about when you ask us to do these tasks, how much is it actually intrinsic motivation, or do we just do it because we're told? Kind of like, so what are your thoughts about that? And the other question I had is around play. What kind of theories do you use when you talk about your play games? Yeah, so I was kind of like, if you could elaborate a little bit about that. But thanks for an interesting presentation today.
Yes, so maybe just very shortly to the intrinsic motivation part. I think usually the scores, they should leave space. So they are clear, they tell you what to do, but they also leave a lot of room to do it in the way that you want to do it. So that is the idea for a good score. And also with play, I mean, playfulness, Katrin introduced this loop of playful engagement that we work with. And I think that is really our basis of how we understand play. And maybe even as we were preparing for this webinar, we noticed how it's also difficult to just draw like an arrow. Like first we thought about playfulness, and then we brought in embodied cognition, and then we thought about microphenomenology and scores, but because it's all related. Like you can really make sure that, or you can try to design a score so that it's playful, but playing will also teach you something about how to do a good score, or being embodied and noticing your body could also help you be playful in a situation when you're watching a conference or you are in a meeting with others, to find your own way of attending here. So it's all sort of interconnected, these different concepts that we introduce.
Yeah, and maybe to add on this theory question, I mean, we did not at all here touch upon the existing theories of playfulness, right? But most of the theories of playfulness, actually, they don't consider playfulness like as a possibility that people can have, right? They consider it either a personality trait or you know, a certain inclination to do things. And in the research that I was shortly telling you about, I basically wanted to get out of that in the sense of saying like, okay, but like that, of course, when it comes to the experience of people, might not count. It might count, but I don't know it, right? So I didn't want to give them any theory in advance. So I basically just asked them to tell me what they thought, did, felt when I give this. And some of them, of course, you know, had this reflection about, okay, what is she referring to when she says playful now, right? And then I knew something about their knowledge, right? But then they also decided, right? And they reported about this, right? About like, okay, but this is not what I'm going to do now, or they did decide that, right? But it was a bit of this idea of like to see where is that out there when I actually ask people to experience that.
Maybe we can still at least hear your question, Søren. Yes, I know the time is short, but tell us.
As just an observation, you know, I really like this because I'm working with teachers in my job, and they have in higher education, and they have like a lot of students. I can have a teacher that has 100 students doing online teaching. So after the you know, it's really about how do you create presence in these situations? How do you create a sense of belonging? And I think what you did here is actually paying attention to you. When I was in breakout rooms, I had to pay attention to the person I was in the breakout room with, both with the game, also active listener. But you also made me go on a search in my own room like being investigate my own world and also sharing that world with you and creating something together. Now this is something I find really useful actually. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Very nice. And just to finish it off, there were some comments about that we created a poem together, and that is true. So normally we would actually finish a session by saying, if people haven't gotten to that now, I will read you a little poem, and then I would repeat your quotes one after another, like that, because we don't have the time now, and also because we had this kind of experience actually by hearing your voices. I would suggest that we just send you this poem afterwards, so that you have a little memory of this activity. Reke, that is probably possible, right? Or you will find it as a documentation. We'll find a way so you'll find this poem. I don't want to get myself into trouble now. Okay.
Yeah, we will save the chat, so the poem will be in the chat, and I'll also probably copy it and send it to you, or send it to. We can send stuff out to all participants. And thank you so much, Katrin, Annika, Pedro, for this thought-provoking, also a bit provoking for me as a serious proper academic to actually I don't know, hang post-it notes on. Well, I do silly stuff sometimes, but you know, it's always provocative, these kind of sessions where you don't just sit back and listen to slides for 1.5 hours and come out cognitively fulfilled, or whatever we call it. But now I have like crazy post-it notes all over my room that I'm moving into, and this is not your space yet. And so I will have memories lingering after we are all gone in a second. Before you go, so thank you for that, Katrin, Annika, and Pedro. Before you go, just want to again point you to the next webinar, which will be thought-provoking and inspiring, and perhaps also just provoking in other ways. So you can sign up for that. Also, just pointing you to the whole series on the platform here, where you can also sign up, and where we will notify you if you signed up to the Playful University platform when we have the video up or some materials up, new voices up, stuff like that. So if you want to follow what is happening in this playful space, sign up to that as well. Otherwise, I'll just say thank you for hanging out, geeking out, messing around with us all, and hopefully see you November 1st, everyone, for some more hard play, serious playfulness, silly playfulness, all things mixed together. It's so nice seeing you, spending some time. This really made my day. I'm going back to more boring meetings now, but at least I felt alive for this 1.5 hours. Hopefully you did so as well. So thank you. Play hard, rock on, take care, and everything in between.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.